The thin cat girl obviously didn't pin her hopes on defeating her opponent with her first attack. Just as Tang San dispelled her silver claw shadows, she had already closed in on Tang San, and her third soul ring lit up at the same time. On the other side, Xiao Wu pounced from the air straight at the chubby rat on the ground. The chubby rat looked at her and didn't panic because of her attack. Its round body suddenly bounced up, and its first two soul rings lit up simultaneously. Its claws suddenly shot out at a speed that didn't match its size, directly facing Xiao Wu. Its speed was even faster than the thin cat's earlier. The chubby rat's figure could confuse any opponent. In fact, Tang San's initial judgment wasn't wrong. Like the thin cat girl, he was also an agility-type soul master. While the thin cat's first soul ring skill was speed boost, which was a 10-year soul ring, his was the second soul ring skill, also speed boost. The amplification of the 100-year soul ring skill was naturally incomparable to the 10-year soul ring. Therefore, in actuality, the chubby rat's speed was faster than the thin cat's, but it was slightly weaker in terms of attack power when showing the strength of the first two soul rings. Both he and the thin cat were soul ancestors at 37th rank, making them formidable in this tier of soul ancestors dual combinations. Both sides clashed simultaneously, and the ferocity of the soul fight completely erupted at this moment. When the thin cat approached Tang San's body, her third soul ring had already completely released its skill. Her goal was to defeat Tang San with overwhelming force and then go to assist the chubby rat. Seeing that Tang San and Xiao Wu's soul rings were superior to theirs, the experienced thin cat decided to launch this extreme attack. In a regular soul fight, both sides would engage in some probing, trying to understand each other's soul skills as much as possible before launching a full-scale attack. But now, faced with Tang San and Xiao Wu's formidable soul rings, she felt compelled to attack immediately. Once successful, this 2 versus 2 victory would belong to them. 4 consecutive wins weren't easy, and they weren't willing to give up the opportunity for a 5th win. At that time, whether in points or prize money, it would be multiplied by 10. Eow! A sharp cat cry suddenly sounded, and the thin cat girl's body underwent a change in midair. Her claws suddenly extended tenfold, turning into 10 sword-like blades stabbing towards Tang San. The soul power carried by the claws made a piercing sound in the air, distorting the air wherever they passed. This obviously wasn't her own strength, but the ability accompanying her third soul skill. At this point, she was already in front of Tang San, and her extended claws stabbed directly towards various parts of Tang San's body. With the effect of her Millennium Soul Ring, her attack power had doubled. It was something that same-rank soul masters couldn't resist. If facing another soul master, perhaps they would have been intimidated by her relentless momentum and succumbed. Faced with a frontal assault, the only option was to retreat, possibly avoiding the thin cat's attack. When Tang San evaded her claws earlier, he had already retreated somewhat, not far from the edge of the soul fight stage. As long as he retreated one more step, the thin cat would have a chance to force him out of the stage without his martial soul displaying its power. Unfortunately, the thin cat's wishful thinking fell flat. She faced Tang San, who had walked the line between life and death. How could he be easily driven back like this? Just as the sharp claws were about to pierce his body, suddenly, Tang San's upper body disappeared into thin air, without any warning. The thin cat girl was momentarily stunned. Her movements were too fast, even she hadn't been able to see how Tang San had done it. In fact, Tang San's movement was simple. He just performed a standard iron bridge, completely tilting his upper body backward. Although he wasn't as flexible as Xiao Wu, there was no problem performing this kind of movement. However, because he was right in front of the thin cat girl at this moment, such an iron bridge gesture was equivalent to exposing all his vulnerabilities to the opponent. Although the thin cat girl was momentarily stunned, she immediately noticed Tang San's seemingly wrong response. At this point, all she needed to do was flip her wrist, allowing the cat claw blades to stab directly at Tang San. Then, she would have won this fight. Victory was within reach, and the thin cat girl couldn't help but rejoice. The gesture of flipping her wrist was too simple for her. In her heart, She thought that this masked guy's martial soul was not bad, but his combat experience was too poor. He actually resolved her previous attack by exposing his weaknesses like this. But she forgot one thing, that is, she overlooked the opponent's martial soul. The thin cat girl's moment of triumph lasted only an instant. The next moment, she found that her body couldn't move, and she couldn't even make the simple gesture of flipping her wrist. As early as when Xiao Wu rose from his shoulder, Tang San had already released his blue silvergrass, but it was released close to the ground. When the thin cat girl launched her attack on him, her body naturally had to pause. The blue silvergrass, which Tang San had mastered, naturally climbed up, entwining around the thin cat girl's body. If it wasn't for the entanglement of the blue silvergrass, although the opponent's speed was fast, how could Tang San possibly expose his vulnerabilities to the opponent? Then, with the momentum of the iron bridge, Tang San's body flipped backward, and his legs alternately kicked, kicking on the opponent's wrist. The thin cat girl suddenly found that her body was entangled by the blue silvergrass and couldn't move, but she had no way to block Tang San's incoming kicks. The force transmitted from her hands drove her body backward, and at the same time, the thorns attached to the blue silvergrass protruded, instantly spreading a numbing sensation throughout her body. It forced her to muster all her soul power to resist. In a real battle, it was evident how Tang San endured immense pain to gain the dominance of his human-faced demon spider soul ring. Not only was the blue silver grass itself extremely tough, but the accompanying poison had also greatly increased. Although entangling seemed to be Tang San's first soul ring skill, the blue silver grass was indeed Tang San's martial soul, and each time he gained a soul ring, the blue silver grass itself would be strengthened. This was the advantage of a tool soul master compared to a beast soul master. Although a tool soul master couldn't be enhanced by the martial soul itself, when the martial soul's core was enhanced, the resulting soul skills would be stronger. Although the thin cat girl struggled with all her might, her soul power was not as strong as Dai Mubai's, and her martial soul was not as dominant as Dai Mubai's. Tang San's extremely tenacious blue-silver grass was something she couldn't break free from. Under the effect of the paralysis toxin, she had been completely controlled by Tang San. Tang San's footwork was like a ghost's, and with one step, he appeared beside the thin cat girl. His toe lightly touched her, sending her body off the spirit arena. According to the rules of the spirit arena, once someone falls off the platform, it signifies the failure of the spirit fight. At the same time the thin cat girl fell below the platform, the fat rat was also thrown off from the other side of the spirit arena. It turned out that, while in mid-air, Little Dance, who was leaping towards the fat rat, saw the opponent charging at her with astonishing speed. Without hesitation, she activated her third spirit ring skill, Instant Shift. In a flash, she appeared behind the fat rat, her scorpion braid shot out, wrapping around the opponent's neck. With a kick from her right foot, she sent him flying. In a life-and-death battle, the fat rat obviously still had the strength to continue fighting. Although Little Dance had used her waist-bow skill, it wasn't enough to deal a heavy blow to the opponent. After all, beast spirit masters had extremely tough bodies, and the opponent was prepared, unlike the lecherous old man who was ambushed a few days ago and thrown around without even releasing his soul power. But this was the spirit arena. The fat rat's martial soul wasn't a flying type, so how could he control his body in mid-air? He watched as he was thrown out, almost at the same time as the thin cat girl fell off the spirit arena. The battle started fast and ended even faster. It was like rabbits rising and hawks falling. The outcome was decided in just a few blinks of an eye. On the spectator stands, those who were cheering for the cat and rat combination suddenly fell silent. Tang San and Little Dance landed steadily on the spirit arena, exchanging a smile. They hadn't expected the spirit fight today to be so easy. They both believed it was due to the mutual restraint between martial souls. Whether it was Tang San's control type or Little Dance's close combat, they both had a strong restraint against agility-type spirit masters. Originally, Little Dance should have been countered by agility-type spirit masters, but with her ability to teleport, she significantly compensated for her weaknesses. Caught off guard, The fat rat even failed to release his Millennium Soul Ring skill and was thrown out by her. The Grandmaster sitting in the spectator stands nodded slightly, very satisfied with Tang San and Little Dance's performance. As an onlooker, he could see more clearly. In those few moments when they acted, Tang San and Little Dance showed perfect adaptability and integration with their own martial souls. Easily defeating a combination with a higher spirit power level than theirs was not just as simple as martial soul restraint. The practical combat training they had undergone under his guidance in the past few months had quietly come into effect. Announced by the host, the 3-5 combination won the 2-on-2 spirit fight with a consecutive victory, and both of them earned 3 points. It wasn't until then that the audience in the stands cheered again. Although the spirit fight seemed very brief, whether it was Tang San's blue-silver grass or Little Dance's instant shift, they opened the eyes of the ordinary audience. The audience was fair and wouldn't spare their applause. The 3-5 combination quietly left the stage amidst the enthusiastic cheers. What awaited them were their respective one-on-one spirit fights. Perhaps today is the lucky day for the Shrek 7 Devils. They surprisingly achieved victories in all the 1-on-1 and 2-on-2 spirit fights. Among them, Oscar and Dai Mubai's combination was named a double-winged white tiger Zhe by themselves, indicating that with Xiao Ao's assistance, the evil eye white tiger gained wings. They encountered a combination of attack and defense type spirit masters. With Oscar's mushroom sausage assistance, Dai Mubai's weakness in speed was fully compensated, plus his flying ability. He swiftly ascended one of the opponents off the spirit arena, and the rest of the match naturally had no suspense. Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing's combination was named a 7 treasure spirit cat by them. When the opponents saw Ning Rongrong's 7 treasure glass tower, their fighting spirit greatly diminished. Facing a combination with auxiliary-type spirit masters, they should have attacked the opponent's auxiliary-type spirit master first. However, as one of the 7 great sects of soul masters, the 7 treasure glass sect was not something ordinary soul masters would want to offend. Therefore, the 2 20-level soul masters had to face Zhu Zhuqing, whose speed and strength had suddenly increased by 30%. With the assistance of the 7 treasure glass tower, Zhu Zhuqing's strength had already surpassed the 30th level. With lightning-like speed, she easily defeated the opponent without much effort. With 5 1-on-1 victories and 3 2-on-2 victories, the Shrek 7 Devils' journey in the spirit arena started with a perfect beginning. Of course, their spirit fights today were not over yet. There was still one final match awaiting them to complete. Having eaten 2 sausages himself and giving one to each of the others to restore their energy, Oscar looked quite proud. Getting a point in his first battle, how could he not be excited, especially since he hadn't done anything except provide Dai Mubai with a mushroom sausage to replenish his soul power? His original plan to evade the opponent's attacks on the stage didn't even get the chance to be implemented. The Grandmaster, Flender, and Zhao Wuji nodded silently as they looked at the 7 disciples standing in front of them. These teenagers were no more than 15 years old, yet they had achieved such remarkable results in the spirit arena. What more could they ask for? The Grandmaster said, "It's time for the team battle. Since you registered relatively late, you should be appearing towards the end. Remember, you will be facing teams of level 30 and above. Unlike 1-on-1 and 2-on-2 fights, cooperation between teammates is far more important in team battles. Since they are a team, they won't lack various types of soul masters. As for what kind of combination they have, it depends on their understanding of team formations." Dai Mubai said, "Grandmaster, are you still not confident in our cooperation? San, as the control-type soul master, you will command when we start. We will follow your orders." Tang San didn't refuse. As the soul of the team, it was his duty. All right, Mubai, Xiaowu, Zhuqing, you 3 will be the main attackers, with Mubai in the center. Xiaowu and Zhuqing will support from the sides. I will control the opponent as much as possible from the center and assist you in attacking. Fatty, you stay in the back, using your Phoenix Firewire for long-range attacks and protecting Oscar and Rongrong. Oscar, start preparing now. Give each person one sausage from each category. Is that okay? Oscar said, no problem, I still have plenty of soul power. Tang San finally turned to Ning Rongrong. Be careful and stay close to Fatty. If the opponent attacks you, don't worry, I'll help Fatty protect you.
Ning Rongrong chuklet, worry.
What's that? I don't think I've ever experienced that emotion. Dai Mubai said, alright, let's go. The venue for the team battle was obviously much larger than that for one-on-one and two-on-two battles, and the waiting room for the players was also much busier. There were at least 30 Soul Masters waiting here. It should be noted that in the entire Balak Kingdom, there were only 2 arenas of this size, one here and the other in the capital of the Balak Kingdom, the Balak Great Spirit Arena. It could be said that in the Balak Kingdom, almost all Soul Masters willing to participate in spirit fights were gathered in these 2 cities. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many Soul Masters here. According to the statistics of the Spirit Hall, the total number of Soul Masters on the entire continent did not exceed 100,000, and there were only about 2,000 resident Soul Masters in the Balak Kingdom. Therefore, the Great Spirit Arena was able to attract so many Soul Masters. Even Soul Masters of the level of Flender and Zhao Wuji participated in the spirit fights. Because of their high level and strong strength, the gains they could get from the Great Spirit Arena were considerable. If it weren't for Zhao Wuji having many enemies and Flender having a high opinion of himself, in the current economic downturn of the Academy, they might have participated in the spirit fights too. As expected, as the Grandmaster said, Tang San and the others were arranged to be the second to last to appear. They didn't go outside to watch the battles. 4 of the 7 had already experienced 2 spirit fights, and their soul power was somewhat depleted. Although Oscar's recovery sausages were assisting, it was impossible for their soul power to fully recover in a short time. Before it was their turn to appear, the 7 of them sat down in a corner to meditate and gather their soul power, preparing for their upcoming spirit fight. If it were just one person wearing a mask, it might not attract too much attention. But when 7 people wearing the same mask walked into the team battle waiting room at the same time, they couldn't help but attract the attention of others. Most Soul Masters, upon seeing Tang San and his group, showed a cautious look. Although they couldn't see the faces of the Shrek 7 devils, they could still tell from their figures and clothing that they were a combination of 3 females and 4 males. In the world of Soul Masters, the number of female Soul Masters was only 1/5 of that of male Soul Masters, so such a combination was already somewhat unusual. While Tang San and the others were silently practicing, waiting for their turn to appear, a tall, muscular man suddenly walked towards them. This man looked to be in his 30s, with a bare upper body showing off exaggerated dark muscles. There was no need to ask, he was also a strength-type Soul Master. Hey, little girl, your figure looks good. Why are you covering your face? Let me see. The person he was talking to was Zhu Zhuqing, the girl with the most voluptuous figure among the 3 girls of the Shrek 7 devils. Although Zhu Zhuqing was the youngest, her development made both Ning Rongrong and Xiao Wu secretly jealous. At this moment, she was also covering her face with a mask, and no one could tell that she was just a 12-year-old child. Get lost. Zhu Zhuqing's response was in line with her usual demeanor, with only a cold word. Are you disrespectful because you've been given face? Little girl, do you know who I am? How dare you speak to me like this? As he spoke, his large hand was already raised. She told you to get lost, didn't you hear? Dai Mubai stood up abruptly and came to stand in front of Zhu Zhuqing. Although he was slightly smaller in stature than the other, the momentum he burst out with made the opponent involuntarily hesitate. Looking for death. The big man's fierce eyes widened as he suddenly struck down with his right hand towards Dai Mubai. Dai Mubai snorted coldly and met the opponent's palm with his right fist from bottom to top. With a dull thud, the big man's body shook a bit, but Dai Mubai retreated 2 steps. However, a cold light flashed in his evil eyes simultaneously, and a strong killing intent instantly burst out from him, the leader of the Shrek 7 devils, the white tiger of the evil eyes. The people beside the Shrek 7 devils naturally saw that Dai Mubai was at a disadvantage. As a strong attacking type soulmaster, although Dai Mubai didn't use his martial soul power could still affect his attacks. Being forced back 2 steps obviously meant that the opponent's soul power was higher than his. It should be noted that Dai Mubai was already a level 37 soul ancestor at this time, and he was about to enter the level 38 realm. In this situation, being forced back by the opponent meant that the muscular man in front of him was likely a level 38 or even 39 soul ancestor. In the level 30 range, his soul power was already top-notch. Stop. Just as the 2 sides were about to start a fight, a voice suddenly interrupted. A middle-aged man in his 40s strode forward. He didn't make any gestures, but it seemed that with just 2 steps, he arrived between Dai Mubai and the tall, muscular man. Do you not know that the Spirit Arena preparation area is not a place for private fights? This is the rule of the Great Spirit Arena. If you want to fight, do it on the Spirit Arena stage. Seeing this middle-aged man, the previously angry muscular man immediately changed his expression. Manager Ao, my bad, I couldn't hold back for a moment. The middle-aged man referred to as Manager Ao looked at the Shrek 7 Devils. You are the new registered team, the Shrek 7 Devils, right? Alright, you don't need to argue here. It's perfect. Today you are each other's opponents on the Spirit Arena stage. Whatever grievances you have, solve them on the Spirit Arena. Guangxi, if I see you causing trouble on my turf again, don't blame me for being impolite. This is my final warning to you, remember it. Yes, won't happen again. Guangxi's strong physique and his smirk were extremely mismatched. When his gaze turned to Dai Mubai, he immediately became stern, pointing a finger at Dai Mubai. Kid, we'll see about it later. If I don't beat you, your mother won't recognize you. I won't even be called Guangxi then. After saying that, Guangxi turned and left. Manager Ao glanced at Dai Mubai indifferently and said calmly, don't be deceived by appearances. Guangxi is the captain of the Guangzhou team, and all members of the Guangzhou team have strength above level 35. They have registered at the Spirit Arena for 7 days and have already achieved a 7-win streak at the Soul Elder level. If they manage to complete a 10-win streak, they will directly advance to Bronze Spirit Fighter. With their strength, they would be outstanding even among other level 30 teams in the Bronze Spirit Fighter rank. You all better watch out. If you think you're not strong enough, surrender as soon as you get on stage. The Guangzhou team won't hold back, and their attacks will result in either death or severe injury. Manager Ao's voice wasn't loud, just enough for the 7 Shrek 7 Devils to hear. After speaking, he turned and left. The other Soul Masters around them also stopped paying attention after seeing Manager Ao. Dai Mubai sneered. I didn't expect our first team battle on the Spirit Arena would be against such tough opponents. Either death or injury, huh? We'll see who ends up like that. That Guangxi is not simple, Oscar said. Dai boss, do you remember the first thing Manager Ao said? Don't be deceived by appearances. He was hinting that Guangxi is not as rough as he seems. To become a team captain and lead his team to a 7-win streak, spreading fear among other teams, takes more than just strength. This guy probably came to test our strength on purpose. Dai Mubai nodded. That's very likely. If that's the case, we need to be more cautious. Listen up, everyone. If the situation turns bad, don't push yourselves too hard. Use Oscar's mushroom sausages to fly off the stage immediately. Everyone's safety is the most important. As the captain of the Shrek 7 Devils team, Dai Mubai was not someone who acted on impulse, but he would never watch his woman be humiliated. Of course, only he acknowledged Zhu Zhuqing as his woman, she would definitely not admit it. Tang San said, the opponent's advantage lies in their higher levels. Since Guangxi is named after the rhinoceros, his martial soul should be a rhino, making him a defensive strength-type soul master. During the fight, we should avoid direct confrontation with him and attack other soul masters with lower defense first. Leave Guangxi to me. I'll do my best to control him. There were 5 team battles in the 13th District's Spirit Arena. The Shrek 7 Devils had a half-hour rest after the first 3 battles. Finally, it was their turn to take the stage. The Shrek 7 Devils and the Guangzhou team walked out of the Soul Master preparation area together. At this moment, they finally saw all the members of the Guangzhou team. Guangxi's tall and sturdy body led their team, followed closely by 2 middle-aged men who looked similar and were likely brothers. They had average builds and gloomy expressions. Behind them was an enchanting woman, the only female member of the Guangzhou team. Her age was indeterminate due to heavy makeup, but her figure suggested she was over 20. She wore a very revealing outfit, with only a bustier on top and a sheer skirt that left little to the imagination. The enchanting woman threw a flirtatious glance at Dai Mubai, who was at the front of the Shrek 7 Devils. Dai Mubai didn't even look at her. Having seen many beautiful women, he had no interest in someone with heavy makeup. Dai Mubai's disinterest didn't mean everyone else felt the same. For example, one of the fat members was already aroused, swallowing his saliva and having inappropriate thoughts. Behind the enchanting woman were 2 slender young men, their eyes darting around constantly. The oldest member of the Guangzhou team, looking ordinary and over 40, walked at the rear. His simple attire made it hard to associate him with being a soul master. The Shrek 7 Devils observed their opponents, who were also observing them. However, apart from the fat member's unique physique, the Shrek 7 Devils looked normal in build, and their faces were hidden by Shrek masks, making it difficult to judge them by appearance alone. The team battle stage was much larger than the 1-on-1 and 2-on-2 stages, with a diameter of 40 meters. The surrounding spectator seats were also twice as large. The audience was already seated. There were traces of blood on the stage, likely from previous team battles. The Guangzhou team's appearance ignited the audience's fervor, with loud cheers echoing throughout the venue. Tear them apart. Kill them. Similar shouts not only created pressure, but also made the atmosphere more exhilarating. The host of the match was manager AO, who had previously intervened on behalf of the Shrek 7 Devils. Standing at the center of the stage, he announced, the 4th match, Team Battle. The teams are the Guangzhou team and the Shrek 7 Devils. I don't need to introduce the Guangzhou team much. They have achieved an excellent record of 7 consecutive wins. If they continue their winning streak, they might set the record for the fastest advancement to Bronze Spirit Fighter in Soto's Great Spirit Arena. Now, let's look at the mysterious team on the other side of the stage. This team registered today, and this is their first team battle. Unfortunately, they are up against the Guangzhou team. These masked soul masters are called the Shrek 7 Devils. Whether it was due to the Guangzhou team's numerous supporters or the Shrek 7 Devils' masks giving a bad impression, a wave of boos erupted from the audience when manager AO announced their name. The 40-meter diameter circular stage was spacious, with enough room for 14 people without feeling crowded. As manager AO finished his announcement, the Shrek 7 Devils and the Guangzhou team each took their positions. The Guangzhou team's formation had Guangxi in the front, with the 2 gloomy middle-aged men behind him in a triangular formation. The enchanting woman stood in the center, smiling seductively. The 2 slender young men were on the wings, and the ordinary-looking older man was at the rear, forming a wedge-shaped formation. The Shrek 7 Devils also took their positions. Unlike the Guangzhou team's 3-3-1 formation, they adopted a 3-1-1-2 formation. The 7 members were divided into 4 rows. At the front were Dai Mubai, Xiao Wu, and Zhu Zhuqing. The second row had Tang San, the third had Ma Hongjun, and the last row had Oscar and Ning Rongrong. Oscar stood close to Ning Rongrong. Having already distributed 3 sausages to each member, he didn't have much else to do. Why are you standing so close to me?
Ning Rongrong whispered.
Oscar replied, in case someone attacks you, I can be a human shield. Usually, Ning Rongrong would think Oscar was trying to take advantage of her, but now his serious tone and focused gaze on the opponents suggested he wasn't joking. Having two support-type Soul Masters was an advantage, but it also meant the Shrek 7 Devils' fighting strength was effectively 5 against a team of 7 above level 35. The pressure was immense. With Ning Rongrong's 7-treasure glazed tile pagoda martial soul, the opposing team would likely target her first, as her presence could boost their overall strength by 30%. The host asked both sides if they were ready. Dai Mubai and Guangxi, as the captains, confirmed their readiness. A 5-second countdown starts. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Team battle, 4th match, begin. The countdown was exclusive to team battles to give Soul Masters time to release their martial souls, ensuring no one was disadvantaged by a slow start. This also made the battles more spectacular for the audience. Brothers, release your martial souls, Dai Mubai shouted, his aura surging. His muscles instantly bulged, and his arms extended, releasing his white tiger martial soul. Simultaneously, both sides released their martial souls. Beast Soul Masters transformed, and Tool Soul Masters summoned their weapons, making the stage dazzling. Tang San finally understood why audiences loved team battles. The sight of 14 Soul Masters releasing their martial souls and the brilliance of soul rings was far more impressive than individual matches. The Shrek 7 Devils had 4 Soul Elders with identical soul ring configurations, 2 yellow and 1 purple ring each, representing 200-year and 1,000-year soul rings. The other 3 had 200-year rings each. In contrast, the Guangzhou team's soul rings were uneven. Guangxi had 1 white, 1 yellow, and 1 purple ring, a standard 10-year, 100-year, and 1,000-year combination. The 2 gloomy middle-aged men had 1 white and 2 yellow rings, weaker in comparison. Surprisingly, the enchanting woman had the best configuration with 2 yellow and 1 purple ring, similar to the Shrek 7 Devils' Soul Elders. The other 3 members had over 30 levels, but only one had a 1,000-year ring, the ordinary-looking older man. The other 2 had 1 white and 2 yellow rings. The neat configuration of the Shrek 7 Devils' soul rings contrasted sharply with the Guangzhou team's uneven rings. Despite having tested Dai Mubai's strength, Guangxi was still taken aback by the 4 Soul Elders with top-tier configurations. Luckily, 3 were Grandmasters, or he might have considered surrendering. High-level soul rings were rare and difficult to obtain, usually requiring strong assistance to acquire them safely. The originally rowdy audience fell silent at the sight of 4 purple spirit rings. The visual impact was significant. Moreover, none of the Shrek 7 monsters had a mere 10-year white spirit ring, which indicated that they had a substantial background. Director AO was also startled by the spirit rings of the Shrek 7 monsters, but he quickly recovered. With a shout of begin, he swiftly retreated from the stage, his movements incredibly quick, clearly showing that he was a powerful spirit master himself. The first to act were not the battle spirit masters at the front, but the support spirit masters at the back. The older man in the opposing team had a flash of light in his hand, and a silver disc appeared in his palm. His white and yellow spirit rings lit up simultaneously. A disc of fortune, defensive light bloom. Disc of Fortune, Attack Aura Bloom. 2 rings of light, matching the colors of his spirit rings, were instantly released, adding layers of yellow and white light to each of his 6 teammates at the front.